Hey everybody, I want to thank you all again for coming out to Coming Out Festival today. So, about Coming Out Festival. Coming Out Day is a day to celebrate our coming out process. It is a day for everybody who wants to come out to feel supported. So I hope you all feel supported today. That's what Lit Chooses Love is all about, is supporting our queer community, our transgender community, right here in Lancaster County. I've just recently moved from Philly. After 17 years in Philly, I am used to a much higher level of care for our community than I have felt from other entities here so far. So we created our own entity. So I can go over my whole coming out story. It's fun. I grew up in Jersey, which wasn't too bad. Moved to Illinois when I was 11. God, that was horrible. And that experience kind of reminds me a little bit of this kind of a move, where I'm just like, oh my God, what happened? So that was some bad years of my life. I realized I was different. I didn't know how. 80s, 90s, didn't know what transgender was. So at 24 is when my doctor recommended to me starting testosterone, because my menstrual cycle was god awful. And it got to a point that he said, okay, well, normally we would prescribe you birth control, which is progesterone, which is girl hormones, which I feel like you don't want any more of in your body. And I was like, yeah, that'd be right. So I was offered testosterone. Part of this event today, we did have Planned Parenthood here. They did have to run out, but they left us some more of their material. They are now going to be running, starting November 1st, a hormone replacement therapy clinic. It's going to be available through telehealth as well. So this is a huge step for us to have accessibility to healthcare in Lancaster County. So I am really proud to have had Planned Parenthood here today to talk about that. Planned Parenthood in Philly has always been a great resource as well. So I really hope that our community can count on them here in the future as well. So our vice president has been amazing to me since we started this organization. We had that Pride event, and that's actually when I met Chris. We had a meeting after that event and just super clicked. I knew that Chris was my inside person here, knew exactly what it's like to be one of us growing up, living here, and has been an invaluable person in our organization. And I just want to thank them. So please give Chris a round of applause. And please welcome Chris and their entire family onto stage.
Thank you. So yeah, I am Chris. All right. I am a non-binary trans masculine person. I use they them pronouns, or he him are okay also. I even probably for this area have a kind of unique coming out story, because I was raised in a conservative Anabaptist home, which means like you're Amish, you're Mennonites, conservative Anabaptist. And so I went to Mennonite school instead of regular public school. And so we had to wear, like, you know, if you were assigned female at birth, you had to wear, you know, long dresses and coverings. I have pictures. So everything was broken down into men do this, women do that. So I learned pretty quickly that I did not fit in to where I was expected to be. And going to a conservative Mennonite high school, I became the class project. I would be invited to stuff, you know, to try and make me fit. It became the point that if somebody would say that somebody was like me, it was an insult because I was different. Even after having left school, I still sometimes get invited to their stuff. Not that they really want me to attend, just because in hopes that they can still fix me. So I didn't know words for what I was growing up because it wasn't something talked about in other than, you know, people who didn't look right were considered an abomination. And then in 2000, I got married to BJ, and we tried to fit the proper roles that were expected of us. We tried to do, you know, what we were supposed to do, what we thought was the right thing to do, how I was raised. And we lived with my grandparents who raised me. And so we tried so hard, and then, but it didn't work. Like when we were by ourselves, we could be free to be who we were, but outside the house, it just didn't work. And then in 2019, my grandfather passed away. And I got opened up to a freedom to be more who I was. I was still taking care of my grandmother. And so, but I shaved my head. We started, you know, I started dressing more like myself, and I shaved my head. But I was still taking care of my Mennonite grandmother. But grandma was okay with me being who I was. But the rest of the family was not. When her twin brother died, I received a phone call telling me I could not come to the funeral. I had never been anything but nice and trying to conform to what was expected of me when we would go places like that. I would put a veil on my head. I would wear a dress. I was always respectful. But family now considered me an abomination. So then in 2013, my grandmother passed away. And I received the freedom to be who I was. I started working at my job that I work at now. I publicly came out as non-binary. And I got free to be who I was. Yes, the rest of my family still considers me an abomination, and I don't really talk to my family. And I'm lucky to find out if somebody dies when they die before they've been dead for a month. But in 2013, I finally had the freedom to be myself. And, you know, it's a long journey, but I am so thankful to be where I am now. And I just want to say to anybody, whether you're out or not, you are valid. And, you know, everybody has the right to carve their own path. And just, you know that you are loved for who you are. And now I will give this to my son, Roman, and let him talk.
Hi, like they said, I'm Roman. I'm 20. And other than trans, I don't really use any describing words for myself. So like I'll say as like a joke, like, oh, I'm gay or I'm a homosexual, but I just tend to say like, I don't really care what gender people are, but I don't use any terms. Which is kind of funny now because when I was younger, the words would have meant everything to me because it was some sort of answer I was looking for. And I back then wanted nothing more than to have some sort of label for myself. When I was little, my parents, because of how they were raised me in as gender neutral of an environment you can get in this area when everybody cares that you're doing the right thing for the gender you were assigned at birth, which for them, it meant that I was allowed to wear whatever I want. I was allowed to, with my siblings, play with Legos, trucks, cars, run around outside and get my knees all scraped up. And it wasn't a problem. I was just being me. And no one within our family circle, them and my siblings would say that anything was wrong. And it made the process of growing up easier because I didn't realize I was different from a young age. I was just me and I was allowed to be myself. The first moment I remember feeling what I know now is dysphoria is sixth grade. Everybody was starting to learn about how our bodies would change. And all my friends were so excited. I was friends with the more popular girls in my school. And all of them were so excited to grow up, be able to wear makeup and go shopping for bras. And I was like, no, thank you. May I please return this? And I remember around that age going out to recess and tucking my hair up in a little, it wasn't a baseball cap, but it was similar to that. And spending the entire recess like that, or going to school in layers because it was more comfortable because I couldn't notice my body changing. And at that age, kids just brush it off as, oh, they're kind of quirky, just kids being kids, and nothing is thought of it. But around this time, I also figured out I wasn't straight. And I might not have been openly bugged about how I dressed or anything, but openly admitting that you aren't straight I would have been 10 at the time, is a different story because, kids may not think differently about clothing or anything. But at 10 years old, I was told on the bus ride home by a fellow student in my grade that I was going to hell. At 10 years old, I was told I was dismissed by this kid just because of something that he was taught being raised in this area. And this started what I would call the tougher stretch of me becoming me, because within the next 2 years, I tried to come out as a non-binary, and I had my best friend at the time tell me that I didn't know myself. And yeah, I didn't know myself at the time, but I don't think this is what she meant at the time. I'm pretty sure she expected oh, you're still a girl. I don't think she expected me to be 20 and be fully masculine. And I wasn't out at school at that time, but I was out at that point identifying as pansexual. And that painted a target on my back because middle school kids just get meaner. And so all the popular guys who were on the soccer team would repeatedly ask me out as a joke and ask my number as a joke. And no matter what I did, I couldn't get them to stop. And it was kind of thing that they also made rude comments about my sexuality. And that sucked about the part about being open. But I had at that point made a few queer friends because I was out. And my family had been told since I was little that it gets better in the high school. There's a GSA in the high school. I found out 8th grade that the high school didn't have a GSA. They had one at one point, but it had dissolved because the school didn't put effort in to keep it up. So I went into high school with a plan to start a GSA, and I did. And the school wouldn't help me find an advisor for it. They were kind of like, oh, we can possibly give you a list of teachers that might be open. And one of the teachers that they said was an openly homophobic teacher. So the school wasn't much of a help in that realm either. I had gone to an English teacher that I had known was okay because I had her in class and asked her if she had the space. And she let us use her classroom after school. And it became kind of a safe space for all the kids in school. And despite that being a safe place, the entire high school itself wasn't. I was told in 9th grade in the locker room that within an earshot of me, deliberately for me to hear, that the girl didn't want lesbians to watch her change. The hilarious part of that is all the kids that I knew that weren't straight, we all changed in the back corner, all off to ourselves, avoiding looking at anyone, and we got in, got out, and we tried to stay in there as little as possible. And at that point, all the GSA photos were still being, posters that we had hanging on the walls with the dates were being found in trash cans. And the school told us that they could do nothing about it, that they couldn't pinpoint, despite us giving them a time we put them up and a time it disappeared, they couldn't look through the school video and tell us when the posters disappeared. Now I have a plethora of friends who support me and love me both around here and across the entire world. And I have a wonderful boyfriend and my supportive family. And when they say it gets better, it really does. It just takes a bit of time and the right people around you and a little work thrown in by you, but it gets better eventually. Someday you will, if you don't have that freedom now, you will have that freedom.